Welcome to the Conscious Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Alex Raymond, and today's guest is someone I'm proud to call a friend, Ret Taylor. Ret is the co-founder and former co-CEO of NED, a company that has become synonymous with wellness and helping people live better naturally. This is a big moment for Ret. After years of dedication, passion, and hard work building his company, he has now officially exited NED and has lots of new opportunities ahead in his journey. And in this conversation today, we talk about what it is that made him take that leap, how he found the clarity to align his work with his personal zone of genius, and the lessons he's taking with him into what's next. Now, Ret's been a huge supporter of the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit, and he has really embraced the community and its mission to prioritize the well-being of founders. His story is a reminder of what's possible when you stay true to yourself and build a business that reflects your values. I know you're going to love this conversation, so let's jump in. Hey, Ret, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the Conscious Entrepreneur Podcast.
Great to see you too, Alex. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, well, this is exciting. You've been a really valued member of the Conscious Entrepreneur community for a long time. You've got an incredible journey yourself as the founder or co-founder and co-CEO of NED, which has had an incredible journey here in Boulder, and a lot of people know about it. And that's something you've been doing for a while. And as I know, really fairly breaking news is we have an outcome for NED. We have a story to tell here. So I'd love just to start off by learning a little bit about the journey that you've been on as an entrepreneur and why you started the business, and leading up to today and what things are looking like right now.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Well, yeah, I guess I started my entrepreneurial career back in 2006. It wasn't a business I started; it was a nonprofit. Co-founded the Brazilian Green Building Council. And myself and two other people, we brought LEED certification to Brazil. One of the things I'm most proud of. That kind of kicked things off. I spent all my money building the nonprofit. I was literally digging through couch cushions, and I had an offer to start a business around selling hotel furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and in New York City. And it was from my best friend's father, and he said, this feels like a good opportunity. I said, Alan, I'm a nature guy. I have no interest in furniture, fixtures, or equipment. New York City? I don't think so. And he said, listen, if you don't make $500,000 the first year and $1 million to $2 million each year going forward, then you'd be doing something wrong. I said, well, that's interesting. So ended up starting that business. I thought, let me do this for 2 or 3 years, and then I'll go do what I'm passionate about again. And 2 or 3 years turned into 13 years, turned into offices in New York, Miami, Boulder, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I was very good at it. I enjoyed certain elements of it, but to me, it was all just a widget. And I also started to realize when I was doing hotels for the second time that all of that furniture, all the carpeting, all of that material was going mostly into landfills, and that didn't sit well with me. So they literally came to a point where I could physically no longer do it. I remember being at a convention, and a woman was asking me about the pile height and the carpet, and I just couldn't bring myself to care enough to answer her. That was kind of the breaking point, which was interesting because it also came after I spent 50 days entirely living outdoors in the summer of 2016. I refused to go inside. My wife and daughter were back home in the Netherlands, and our lease ended on June 1st. And I said, why would I start another lease until they're back? So I found a place for August 1st and then hit the road and lived on the tops of mountains and the bottoms of canyons all over the West. Nobody knew I was gone. I was still online, but I was thriving, and it was an experiment to see how much I could thrive. And I would get more done in a handful of hours than I would in multiple days. And I just felt great. At the end of it, I spent 4 days on a vision quest in the Utah desert near Escalante, along the Escalante River. And it was a fasted vision quest. And I had the vision of creating a new company, one that would do for me or do for others what nature had just done for me, which was to help me heal and thrive. And that was Ned, company you referenced. Um, Ned's mission is and was to help people feel better and live better through the powers of the natural world. And we did that. We did that through natural remedies and natural alternatives to pharmaceuticals, some of the best in the world. And that was really born from my mother's battle with cancer, wanting to get her the very best natural remedies for her. And seeing that there was a gap in the market for high quality, high transparency, and really great customer experience. So started that business at the right time. We hit a wave, and we saw a lot of success very early on. And about 4 years in, though, we kind of plateaued, and it went from the mission, the purpose, the guiding principles, the connections with the farmers. Really, it went to the P&L, the numbers, and it got very, very dour for me. I'm more of the visionary, and that living in that world wasn't what I wanted. So it was a beautiful journey, but in fact, it was chugging along, and it could have been a great business to stay in. But back in early spring, we learned that our bank that held our line of credit had collapsed, and it made things even more difficult. So it really felt to me, now we're getting into all types of spiritual stuff here, but it became very, very spiritual for me around that time.
So when you mean spiritual, is what was going on? You were just kind of like, okay, we've got a business. We've made it through 4 years. We've developed a bunch of products and a bunch of customers who love it. And by the way, the Raymond family is a user of Ned products. We love Ned products. We've got the magnesium and the hemp oils and all this kind of stuff, and the chais. So we're fans. You'd also given out hundreds and hundreds of these things at the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit in June. And so is what was going through your mind that, okay, we've got a business, we've proven out a bunch of stuff, we've de-risked it, but as we're going through this, yes, we come across all the challenges of running a business, like the P&L stuff that you mentioned. So the mindset shifts from visionary to, oh, I got to push the rock up the hill. I've got to get 2x better. I'm just thinking about the 10x versus 2x thing, right? Like, okay, I got to make it 2x better and keep the bankers happy and pay off the line of credit and all this kind of stuff. And then bank collapses, gives you an opportunity to say, why am I really here? Is this an opportunity to surrender and see what the universe has in store for me? That's just what I'm kind of anticipating you're going to say, but tell us what really happened.
Yeah, well, back in late February of 2024, this year, my best friend, Josh Mandel, called me up and he said, "Hey, Ret, I'm leading our YPO retreat at my house up in Vail. And one of the guys wants to do this thing. It's called a Misogi. There's a guy, he wants to fly this guy out. He charges a bunch of money, but I feel like you've been talking about this. You do this, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, buddy, I've been doing this for 9 or 10 years. And I said, "Well, listen, would you be interested in leading the retreat?" I said, "Absolutely." And I had about 6 weeks to prepare. And I approached it very differently than I have most other business endeavors. I came at it with a real sense of confidence and an understanding that this is deep within me. I didn't feel the need to prepare that much. I didn't feel the need to really work too hard at it and struggle on it, memorize a speech and spend hours and hours on a PowerPoint. I came to it with this really just different confidence that I haven't felt for quite a while. And I went and did the retreat for the guys. We did this awesome Misogi out the back door. We climbed the mountain. I had, 8 CEOs in their 50s, pretending that they were boys again in a tribe, and they had to carry this golden icon to the top of the mountain so that their tribe would have power for generations to come. And they just like dove right into it. Absolutely loved it. I had them, do a cold plunge at the end. These guys got off the flight from Miami 14 hours before. And so they absolutely loved it. I loved it. And I thought to myself, wow, something important just happened there. Then I was asked by a mutual friend of ours, Finian Kelly, to come lead a portion of a retreat he was facilitating, the nature portion. And he gave me very little instruction. He said, why don't you come? And if it feels right, you can lead a nature walk. I said, okay, great, I'll be there. And then at the retreat, he gave me no indication whether this was going to happen or not. All of a sudden, on day 2, 30 people were all sitting around in a circle. And Finn says, and now Red is going to speak to us about nature and then lead us on a nature retreat. And that was the total of the intro. It lasted maybe 4 seconds. In the first second, I thought to myself, oh boy, I'm on the spot. The second second, I said, well, wait a minute. You've got this. You live and breathe this. This is you. The third second, I took a deep breath. And the fourth, I began speaking. And I spoke for about 20 minutes more eloquently than I have in ages. It flowed. It rolled off my tongue. It was there already. And then the nature walk was beautiful. And it was the highlight for some of the folks at the retreat. And then a week later, I went and climbed Denali. And I had 2.5 weeks to think. A lot of time in the tent and a lot of time just walking. And I thought to myself, yeah, there's something there. What is this? I feel like for the first time in my entrepreneurial journey, I'm going with the flow. It's easy. It feels right. It feels really, really good. And then I came back from Denali, and the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit was a week or 2 later. And I just absolutely love the summit. And I was there with my ears wide open. And one of the things I kept hearing was how difficult it is to be an entrepreneur, and how it's, we all kind of have a screw loose, and we idolize those who have come before us who worked super hard and sacrificed. And I thought to myself, yes, that's been my journey. It has been really hard. And tenacity and grit are values that I prize in myself and others. But I started thinking, what if it's not supposed to be hard? What if it's supposed to be easy? Like it was for me, the last 2 retreats I did. And I had this big realization that I've been idolizing the wrong things. I should be idolizing, and I want to idolize those who don't work so hard, those for whom it comes easy, and those that really surrender to their paths, and move with confidence in them. You had an amazing speaker. I mean, all the speakers were great, but Travis Luther's speech really spoke to me. And Travis, you've had him on the show.
Yep.
He went and interviewed dozens of people on their deathbeds, terminally ill people. And Travis is an entrepreneur, and so a lot of his network are entrepreneurs and professionals. And one of his findings was that these people who were terminally ill, many of them attributed their sickness to not living in alignment with their truth. They had been lying to themselves their entire lives. They were supposed to be a teacher, an artist, a coach. They were supposed to be, and yet they went and became a lawyer, a doctor, or an entrepreneur selling widgets like I was. And their body didn't know the difference between truth and lie. And they went to work for 40 years with that sickness happening. And I thought that was really interesting of Travis to share. that we can actually die, become terminally ill from not doing what we're meant to do.
Yeah, it's incredibly eye opening, and Travis was on the podcast recently. Finney and Kelly, who you referred to, was also on the podcast last year, talking about his book Intentionality and the Intentionality Practice. And in my mind, a lot of these things come together. But the most powerful part of the learning here is: are you experiencing an unlived life? Like basically, do you have the idea there was, okay, there's the things I think I quote unquote should be doing, right? I should be an entrepreneur selling widgets, or I should be a doctor or a lawyer, whatever it is. And then there's this whole unlived life that I'm not experiencing. And the friction between those two causes all sorts of issues to our psyche and, as we're learning, to our bodies. And to me, that's like it's combining the physical with the mental approaches here, and it's just one of these things where you hear it, you're just like, oh yeah, of course. Like, it's so distilled and so obvious when Travis says, here's what the research shows. You're like, yeah, of course, right? That's the word. That's what we've been looking for. So you're going through this whole thing where you're leading the retreat in Vail, then you're doing the nature walk, then you're up climbing Denali yourself, and then you're in the room at Conscious Entrepreneur, hearing Travis talk about the unlived life and these stress and tensions. And how is this morphing into your reality? Like, what happens like when you leave the room?
Yeah. So I had, another big component I don't want to leave out is I had recently read The Surrender Experiment and Untethered Soul, rather. And it talks about exactly this. And it talks about surrendering into what the universe wants for you. And I thought back to when I was a kid. When I was a teenager, my dad would tell me, you should be an outward bound instructor or a fly fishing guide. And I would say, oh, Dad, come on, man. I want to make money, and I want to have something prestigious, and I want to make a name for myself and all of that. And I started thinking, I walked out of the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit and I thought, Dad was right. He knew I'm meant to be outdoors. I'm meant to be with people outdoors, sharing my passion for nature, sharing my expertise that I've gathered over the last 25 years, and helping people heal and thrive with them. Ned, my business, has done that for hundreds of thousands of people. We've helped them find a deeper connection to the natural world. But I've been stuck in this office, Alex, for the last 7 years. And I'm good at reading the P&L. I'm a good CEO, but I'm not a great one. And that's okay. I am great, though, at getting outdoors with people and helping them find that deeper connection to nature, but far more importantly, to themselves. And so it really felt like that's what I'm meant to do. And it's about time to get the hell out of my own way and go do it.
And so you were able to take that insight, which says, all right, I need to go do something different here. You then were able to find a buyer for Ned. So that happened over the last 3 or 4 months, something like that. You're able to find a buyer for Ned, do more of what you like. All this sounds very serendipitous in that you were able to pull it all off at the same time while creating a new version of yourself. But tell us the blow by blow what was really going on there behind the scenes. It can't be as easy as it looks.
No, and it was not easy, and I'm so grateful for that. In fact, that's part of it. As I mentioned, our bank, the bank that held our line of credit, collapsed. We did CBD products, among many other products, but hemp is a tough area to be in around banking. So there weren't too many other options to go get another line of credit, and we needed that line of credit for inventory, and it was always very healthy and very run of the mill. But yeah, that was a big moment for us. And then we, there's details there, but essentially they said that we breached the contract. We said that they did, and they started sending scary emails and the like. And I've spent my entire career avoiding scary emails. So it affected me deeply. And I was very worried, very, very worried, concerned about all types of things. And now I can feel it right now. I spent about 6 weeks in that concern, in that worry, deeply stressed, not knowing what was going to happen, and fearing the worst. And then I went back to the surrender experiment and realized that it just maybe it would help if I just surrendered to all this. At the same time, I was referred to a coach, an amazing guy, Kevin Lawrence, who's here in Boulder. And Kevin gifted me a 90-minute session. He said, let's sit down and we'll talk for 90 minutes. And in those 90 minutes, he gave me two incredible insights. One was that the worry does not serve me. He said, you're an outdoorsman. If you're walking along the trail, if you go out for a hike, are you scared that there's a snake in the grass or a bear in the woods or a cliff? You know, you're not. You're present so that if that comes up, you'll deal with it. You're not worried about it constantly. And if you were, it would detract from your experience outdoors, which is something you love and you're passionate about. So that in that one fell swoop, he abolished about 85% of worry from me. I was able to just kick it out. I just stopped worrying. I still worry about certain things, but I'm curious whether or not I can actually kick out 100% of worry, because my mantra has become worry don't serve me. It just doesn't. It doesn't help to worry. It's this thing left over from prehistoric days when there actually were things to worry about. And so that was very, very helpful. At the same time, too, business was really scary at that point. And all I wanted was to be out. I wanted to get over that feeling of being afraid and concerned. And if you had offered me a parachute, Alex, to jump from the plane without any comebacks, I would have thanked my lucky stars, taken it, and jumped. Kevin made me realize that I actually didn't want to jump. I wanted to land that plane. I wanted all of the lessons it would teach me. I wanted all the feelings to bring it forward. Once I stopped worrying so much, I realized that, I thought all this was happening to me. And why me? We do so much good. We help people. We give away so much money. We're great to everyone. It's part of our ethos. And here we've spent 7 years believing in that and acting on karma and at great expense. And is all this for nothing? And I realized that this was not happening to me, but it was happening for me. And it's a bit of a cliche, but it was a big awakening for me. And once I realized that, everything changed. I mean, within that 90 minutes.
Well, just being able to say, worry doesn't serve me, and it's one thing to say it, right? So my follow-up question to that is, so you can say worry doesn't serve me. How does it feel to have worry come up and then recognize that worry doesn't serve you? Like, how are you shifting your inner state? What's the feeling behind that? What was that like?
Yeah, great question. It's a faith that I found for the first time at 45. It's a faith that I can figure it out, for one. It's never going to be as bad as you might think. And for another, I got on my path. I got on the path that the universe wants for me. And like Mickey Singer, who wrote those 2 books, I surrendered to it. And I got out of my own way. And I started doing more of these retreats. I started coaching people. It just happened. And it was this beautiful door opening. And as soon as I surrendered to it, the universe just filled my sails and pushed me forward, opening all the doors along the way. And it led to this overwhelming faith that everything's going to be okay. And you know what? As soon as I started feeling that, everything started getting better. It's not a magic bullet or a silver bullet, but it really does help. And it's how we found a buyer for Ned, and it's how we landed that plane eventually.
Through the surrender?
Yeah. We tried for about 3 months finding a buyer. We went through our entire Rolodex. We worked with various different brokers and such, and it just wasn't happening. And then I ended up meeting the CEO of Foria, which is a wellness company here in Boulder. And he and I just hit it off. We talked about the intangible things. We talked about karma and doing right by your people and your vendors and working with small family farms and seeing them thrive and how important that is. We talked about the guiding principles that my business partner Adrian and I created, which are really beautiful and sometimes difficult to follow. It made the business much more expensive to run because we wanted to do it right. We wanted to do it with purpose and integrity. And so he and I just hit it off. And he has a beautiful company, Foria. They focus on sexual wellness. They do very beautiful natural products for sexual health. And he said, listen, you guys own the sleep category. We own the sex category in the wellness space, at least. Why don't we own the bedroom? And I said, you know what? Why don't you own it? Because I want to go do what I'm meant to do. Finally, I'm finally ready to go do that. And money be damned and degrees be damned. I'm not waiting any longer. I'm going. And he said, you know what? That's amazing, because we just engaged a company to help us find a company to acquire. And it was just meant to be.
And both in Boulder. So both companies are in Boulder.
Yeah. And I
amazing.
couldn't be more proud to sell our business to Foria. They're going to continue the mission. They're going to keep working with our amazing farms. They brought along our people and gave them raises. It's nothing I could have expected or even asked for.
Well, I mean, the cool thing here is what you're showcasing is the power of getting out of your own way. And, we have these stories. That say, oh, I've got to be an entrepreneur just like such and such, right? I've got to be like, whatever it is, Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or Elon Musk, or, whatever the idea is, right? So I have this idea in my head of exactly the type of entrepreneur I need to be. Creates all sorts of weight and expectations on me, right? Puts all sorts of stuff on me. And I've got all these shoulds in my head that say how I should be behaving and how the company should be growing and what we should be doing and so on and so forth. And, we come across as entrepreneurs, and then certainly anyone who's in the conscious entrepreneur community comes across things like Michael Singer, the Surrender Experiment, and there's Untethered Soul. We come across Gay Hendricks and Zone of Genius and the work of Sri Kumar Rao. And we come across all this stuff, and it's really easy just to think of it as, oh, this is just a book I'm reading, or this is just a video I'm watching, or I'm just going to a workshop today. But what I really appreciate about the story you're telling is, you internalized all this stuff and then you did it, right? It's one thing to say, oh, I really like the Surrender Experiment. I'm never going to do it, but I like the book, right? Mm-hmm. As opposed to saying, you know what? I'm going to take this as a sign from the universe. I'm going to believe that the universe has my back. I'm going to believe in a benevolent universe. I'm going to lean on my resilience and the fact that I've always figured it out up until now. And why would that stop? Why wouldn't that continue into the future? And you basically just leaned into it and had the courage to see it all through. Because I know a lot of people who are like, okay, I kind of sort of ready to do this, but don't have the courage, or haven't really gotten pushed off the cliff, so to speak, yet, but you did it. And I think it's really inspiring to see that happen.
Thank you, Alex. It's I had no other choice. Just like I could no longer tell the woman about the pile height in the carpet. I absolutely must. And I feel like when we get that realization, a lot of people don't. A lot of people will spend their entire lives without ever learning that. And when we have that realization, it's a blessing, and we owe it to ourselves, but also to others to go and follow that. And yeah, maybe my confidence is a bit outsized. It definitely has been throughout my life, but I'm really excited. And right now, the doors are just flying open. I have beautiful opportunities presenting themselves. I've already replaced my income and then some, and it's going really well. And I just feel much more fulfilled and very, very grateful. Grateful for those learnings. Grateful to Josh, my best friend, for the opportunity, for Finian, and for you for the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit. It all came together at the right time for me.
Yeah, you're living it, man. You're literally like the poster child for all this stuff. One of the things I'd like to sort of shift a little bit and talk a little bit about where you're going. And on Instagram, you're known as Mr. Misogi. Your system is called the Misogi system that you've been working on here. My only exposure to Misogi was through reading The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter a while ago. And, this concept comes up of like, we really need to break out of the mold and like do things that make us uncomfortable. And he talks about things like, do something that's very, very difficult and that's a little bit unique or unconventional that you don't really know if you've gotten there or not. The process is in the journey and in the difficulty or the challenge, so to speak. But why don't you just help us expand on this a little bit for the people who don't know what Misogi is or refers to? Like, what is this? Why is this important? Why might this apply really well to a lot of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, sure. It's one of my favorite topics. So I came across this concept of a Misogi about 10 years or so ago. And what it is, well, it started in Japan over 2,000 years ago. And it was written about in the very most ancient text in Japan, the very first written text. And it's the story of this god, Izanagi, who is married to the goddess of fertility. And they have a beautiful, very happy life, as you could imagine, being married to the goddess of fertility. And she unfortunately dies. She goes to the underworld, and Izanagi is beside himself. He's a basket case. And eventually he says, you know what, I got to do something to improve my life. I'm going to go down into the underworld and I'm going to bring her back. So he ventures into the underworld, and it's hell, literally. And there's fire and brimstone, and there's demons pulling at him, and he's got to fight his way. And he finally makes it to his wife, but he realizes that she is succumbing to the perils of hell, and she's beginning to decay, and she's becoming a demon herself. And Izanagi realizes that he's also beginning that process. And if he doesn't get the hell out of there, he's going to end up stuck there. So he turns around, makes this mad dash for the gates, and there's demons pulling at him, trying to keep him there. And, he's struggling, and he's pushing. And just when he thinks maybe he's not going to make it, he finds another gear and pushes through, and he breaks through. And then he dives into a cold river, and he washes off all of the detritus of hell. And he feels this overwhelming sense of purification and re-energy. And it's something called the Sumakiri, which Shinto, Aikido, and Samurai have done for the last 2,000 years. It's once a year. It's a purification ritual in Japan where you go under very cold water, typically waterfall, river, the ocean. So fast forward a little under 2,000 years, and we in America start to think of misogi as not the purification ritual, but that epic challenge, right? We love a good challenge in the Western world. And so we start calling some of these big outdoor challenges a misogi. And it's a once a year thing where you go out into nature and you challenge yourself like Izanagi did. And there's a couple rules to it. The first rule is don't die. The second rule is it should be so hard that you really only have a 50-50 shot at success.
Okay.
Yeah. And, so if you're thinking, well, what should my misogi be? Maybe it's go run a marathon. The third rule for me, which I think is it should be unique. It should be uniquely you. Like Alex's misogi should be different from Ret's. And you should bring your own kookiness to it. So, but if you think running 24 miles, 26.2 miles is a misogi, maybe I could do that on a good day. Well, then you probably got to up it to 30. And if that feels really, really scary, then great. But if it doesn't, then make it 35. Make it something really, really challenging. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've been doing these for the last 8 or 9 years, since there was an article in Outside Magazine about this. And it's really fun for me. I love challenging myself. I love a good challenge in nature. I've always been an endurance athlete, and this just, hits me on all types of levels. So the physical side is really fun and cool. But it's the mental side that's much more exciting to me. And I've really come to realize that, we're just not challenged as humans the way we used to be. Our ancestors were challenged all the time, physically, mentally. These days, our challenges come in the form of hitting numbers or getting the kids from one practice to the next and staying sane with it all. And we're just not challenged like we used to be. And so a result of that is that we really don't know how far our limits are. And our circle, our limiting beliefs become smaller and smaller and smaller. And unless we push beyond those purposefully, intentionally, we really won't know how strong or how capable we are. And to me, that's just a shame. To live a life without dancing on the edges is, to me, my personality. It's not for everybody, but it feels like a wasted opportunity.
Well, it's the combination of doing something very hard that's both physically difficult and mentally challenging, because we know it's the brain that wants to quit before the body. And, the brain says, okay, I'm done with this. Do I need to keep going? And starts making up all the reasons, but doesn't want to continue. The body typically can do all sorts of amazing things that we didn't even know that it can do. And is the idea here for entrepreneurs that I'm now putting myself in a different mindset? Am I sort of raising the floor on my standards, if you will? And this is a way to shake off the cobwebs and realize what I'm actually capable of, like sort of unlock some talents or some energies or drives that I had inside me that maybe I let go dormant, or maybe fear was suppressing them or something like that.
Absolutely. That's a big part of it. And so I was able to draw on the misogi challenges and other challenges I've gone through to continually push my limits. And it was a big part of that realization that worry doesn't serve me. It was a big part of the realization that I actually do want to land that plane. Consequences be damned, I'll still survive. I've proven that to myself many, many times. And it goes as, it can be as simple as sitting in traffic and having the awareness to not get upset, um, I'll get through this. It's fine. But, and then when it comes to struggles in entrepreneur life, it's very helpful to be able to draw on recent examples of moments when you persevered, accepted the challenge, pushed through. Again, it should be 50-50. You're not supposed to succeed every time, but you've proven to yourself that you've got that grit and determination. And again, these are values I value deeply, but there is this kind of question for me now about how do we best approach our entrepreneurial journey, and who, what is the juxtaposition of the challenge versus the downhill battle. So I'm exploring all that right now, and that has become a very important question for us to answer, for me to answer.
Well, I mean, to me, the recommendation here, the idea here, or even maybe the challenge here to people who are watching and listening is to find difficult things and do them with gusto, and do them even if there's a 50% chance that you're going to make it, because you get value in simply the striving and the trying and the energy that goes into it and being there in the act itself, right? So like you get a ton of benefit from that. And who knows, maybe you'll make it, maybe you won't make it, but regardless, you'll still have risen to the occasion. You'll still have risen to yourself. And I think, I'd love to hear how you phrase this, but like, what's your recommendation on entrepreneurs thinking about this and doing this? You said once a year. How difficult does this have to be? What are the types of things, like is there a mini misogi that people start with? Presumably not everyone's packing up to Alaska for 2 weeks of trying to climb some great big mountain. What are the other things that you would do, or like how can we apply this in daily life? Let me put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it should be super approachable. So my next misogi is going to be to walk from my house to my friend Ben's house, which is in Winter Park. So walk from Boulder to Winter Park. You got to climb over the Continental Divide in winter. It's going to be a tough one. It's very scary for me. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it all in a day. But yeah, your misogi should be yours personally. And I actually do at least one a year, sometimes 2 or 3. And so some of the things I've done, back in 2016, my misogi was that 4-day fasted vision quest. And I achieved that, and I got a ton out of it. Other misogis have been to walk for 24 hours without stopping, and I did not achieve that. I hit 14 hours, and man, my feet hurt.
I bet.
And so, these are some simple ones. I really love the go walk for as long as you possibly can without headphones. Just be with your thoughts. And that's something you can do without any prep, any gear. Get a backpack and pack a lunch and some water, and you go walk for 10, 12, 15 hours. And it's a beautiful experience. I did one recently with a coaching client of mine. He did it in Miami. I did it here in Boulder. And we both walked for about 13 hours. We both covered about 37 miles. And it was a beautiful experience. The first half year, I was very grateful for the time, for the opportunity to spend an entire day on myself like this. I was grateful to live in a country where this is even something I could even think about. Other people around the world would go, God, my life is a struggle already. What a privilege, right? So I thought a lot about that. And then about 9 hours in, I started thinking, oh man, my feet hurt. And it became dealing with that and getting past that. And so it's a really beautiful process. I love that one. Somebody I know, Colin O'Brady, has written a book called The 12-Hour Walk. If you're interested in it, it's a pretty good book. He's much more eloquent than I am on the subject. He wrote 350 pages about it. But for me, I love the simplicity. It's just go walk. Don't even think about it. Leave your phone at home, and that's it.
Great.
It reminds me of my mom. We grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and we were watching the news the night before. I was a kid, we were watching the news the night before the Boston Marathon, and she said, I think I'll go do that tomorrow. And my sisters and I were just, all right, Mom. I woke up the next morning and said, where's Mom? And my sister Lauren said, she went to go run the marathon.
You're kidding?
No. And she had not trained. She didn't have a number. She just went and did it. And she ran for the first 11 miles, she said, and then she saw a policeman fall off his bike. And she went to go help him up, and she just couldn't run again. But she finished, and then she walked to the subway and took the T home and walked the mile from the station to the house. And, it was just very simple. And a lot of times we overthink this stuff. Yeah. And just go out and do it.
Well, now we see where you get your Misogi inspiration from. Comes from the maternal line. Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, Ret, this is a really inspiring conversation, and it's cool to see you, living what we talk about so often at Conscious Entrepreneur. You're living, finding your values, understanding who you really are, surrendering to the universe, and embracing the challenges along the way. And hopefully we can all do it with a smile on our face and pep in our step and good energy like you've got along the way. But it's just really fantastic to have you come on and share all these insights and stories. So I really appreciate you being here, and thanks so much for joining us on the Conscious Entrepreneur podcast.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everything you do.